Hi everybody, welcome back. We are now going to create some body controls. So we're going to start off by creating an IK system for the spine joints, and we're going to create some control handles for that. And then we're going to work our way down and create some body controls and a main control and so on. So I think what I'll do first of all is start by creating some basic control handles. So I'm going to pop up to the Create menu, NURBS primitives, and create a circle curve, and I'm just going to drag this one out. What I need to do is make sure that I've got my handles big enough that they're visible around the model. So I'm going to switch back on my polygons option from the show menu just here, and that way I can see that my handles are big enough. So with this first control handle here, this is going to be the master control. I'm just going to center this in the middle of the grid, and I'm just going to scale this up a little bigger. I want this to be basically the biggest control, so that way it's going to be easier to see that it's the main controller. Okay. I'm then going to duplicate this, so I'm going to go to Edit, Duplicate, and I'm going to scale it down a little bit, but I don't want to scale it down too far because it still needs to be bigger than the can diameter. So what I'm going to do is grab the move tool and just move this up a bit and just check that it's going to fit around my can, which it will. Okay, so what I'm going to do is switch off the visibility of my polygons again, and what I want to do is use snap to points and snap this to the pelvis like that. I'm then going to create a couple more handles. I might need maybe 3 handles for this. One is going to go on the spine, the bottom of the spine, just here. One's going to go sort of near the middle, and then the other one's going to go at the top. So I'm going to duplicate this again. So Edit, Duplicate, and this one I'm going to snap just here. Okay, and I'm going to make this a little smaller. So I'm going to grab the scale tool and just shrink this down a little bit, not too much. I just want it to be a bit smaller than the body control. And I'm going to duplicate this again. So Edit, Duplicate, and using the move tool, I'm going to bring this up. And I want this one to be basically between this one and the one at the top. So that's going to be the midpoint. So about there. And then I'll do the same thing again. So Edit, Duplicate, and then this one goes right up to the top. Okay, so I've got 5 handles there: master control, body control, spine lower, spine mid, and spine upper. Okay, so let's rename those. I'm going to freeze their transformation, so I'm just going to shift select all of them, and we'll go to Modify, Freeze Transformations, and then Edit, Delete by Type History, and then what we'll do is name them all. So the one at the bottom is Master Control. The next one up is going to be, let's call that Body Control. This one here is going to be Spine Lower Control. I'm going to copy this name. This one here is going to be, let's call that Spine Mid. And then we'll call the last one Spine Upper. Here we go. All right. Now I'm going to save this file as, so File, Save Scene As. And I'm just going to call this one, instead of Arm IK, let's give it a new number. And I'm going to call this one Body. Yeah, let's just call this one Body Control. There we go. All right. So we're going to be doing some parenting and so on. But before we do that, what we're going to do is create what's called a spline IK handle. So we need to work out where our first spine joint is, and it should be this one just here, spine 1 joint. Okay, so the bottom one is the root joint or the pelvis joint. The next one up is body, and then we've got spine. And I've got 6 spine joints. So I need to remember this joint just here. Okay, if you are going to forget this joint, technically what you could do is come over to the attributes. If you come down to display and then switch on drawing overrides just here, enable overrides, you can then change the color of that joint just there. If I deselect it, you can see then it's sort of that red color. So if you find that you have a lot of things that look the same and you need to try and remember which one is a particular one, you can color it like that. So that way it's easier to find. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to pop up to the skeleton menu just here, and we're going to look for Create IK Spline Handle. And I'm going to go to the options. Basically what I want to do is turn off Auto Parent Curve just here. And I could use single span, a span of 1 for this. And this probably should be okay. So let's click on the first spine joint, and then let's click on the last spine joint. Okay, and you can see up here what I've got is this IK handle. All right, but here's the thing: if I turn on the move tool, notice I do not get any move handle. The reason for that is inside this IK handle is a curve. It's actually created a curve. If I come up to the show menu, I'm just going to snap this off for a second. Let me see if I can actually get this. Bear with me for a second. My recording software has actually removed the bit where I can click on that. It's actually trapped underneath my menus. Not a good spot, really. I might... Oh, this is going to be tough. Okay, I got that fixed. Yeah, what was happening there is when I snap this off, the little cross button hides underneath part of my interface where I can't turn it off again. So I'm going to have to do this manually so you can see. I'm going to have to do this, keep coming back into here. So if we turn off our joints, just there, and if we turn off our IK handles, which are just there, you can see we've got this line. This is a curve or a spline. If I select this and I right click and select control vertex, you can see that I've got these points just here. Now I'm going to turn off snap to points. I don't need that. But what these points do is allow us to move the curve. Okay, like this. Don't forget, I'm undoing after I've moved one of these. So I'm testing to see what the movement is, and then I let go, and then I hit undo. All right, so what these do is the curve, this point moves the curve, which then moves the joint that's connected to it. So if I go back to show and I switch joints back on, you can see there, as I move the curve around, the curve point, the joints go with it, right? So by connecting these points up to our handles, I can move the handles, which moves the point, which moves the joint. And when the joint moves, the model is going to move, right? So that's sort of the idea of this. The problem is that we don't want our animators to have to keep coming in and selecting these points, because as you can see, you've got to do a lot of turning off of visibility and all that to try and get to them. So we're going to set this up in a way that they don't have to do that. Okay, so this is how it's going to work. The first thing I'm going to do is come up to the top here to my selection toggles, and I'm going to turn off select joint objects like this. Okay. Now notice that I'm still in a mode where I can select these points. That's important. You might need to turn off the visibility of your joints again. Okay, like this for this step. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to select the 2 points at the top of the chain, or at the top of the spline. We're then going to go up to constrain. We're going to go to deform and select cluster, just there. And you can see it adds this little C. That's a cluster. So a cluster, what a cluster is it basically acts as a handle that connects to the points that we've connected it to, the points in the curve. So when I move the cluster, it moves the points of the curve, which then moves the curve. Okay, but here's the thing. We can connect a cluster to another object, like a handle. or a locator or a camera or something like that. Okay, so they kind of, it acts like a connector between the points in a curve or the points in an object and another object. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing down the bottom. So I'm going to right click on the curve again, select Control Vertex and grab the two bottom points, and I'm going to do a deform cluster on those as well. Okay, so let's scroll down in the outliner. You can see here we've got a cluster handle 1 and cluster number 2. So I'm going to rename these. So this one here, I'm going to call this spine lower LWR CLS for cluster. And I'm going to highlight that, copy it, and then I'm going to rename the upper one and change lower to upper UPR. So I've got spine upper cluster and spine lower cluster. The actual curve itself, or the spline, okay, is this one here, curve 1. I'm going to change this to spine CRV for curve. And then the IK handle above that is the IK handle for the spine. I'm just going to go back to the show menu and turn back on IK handle so we can see that that's selected. And I'm going to call this one spine IK. So that way we've got everything named. Now you will notice that I've got a couple of IK handles here. Okay, these are the IK handles for my arms, and I haven't named those yet. So if you haven't named those, just give those a name. So that's going to be, let's go wrist left IK, and then wrist right IK. There we go. So yeah, always keep an eye out for things that you might have missed. Okay, so what we need to do is make some connections with these handles and these clusters. Okay, so let's make some connections. So first thing we're going to do is parent my clusters onto the corresponding handles. Okay, I'm just checking the handles first to make sure that I've frozen all the transformations, which I have, and they're all named. So what we're going to do is we're going to select cluster 1, or the upper cluster, just here. Okay, and sometimes it's easier to select things from the outliner. So upper cluster, I'm going to shift select the upper control, and I'm going to parent that. Edit, parent. I'm then going to do the same thing with the lower cluster. So I'm going to select the lower cluster, select the lower spine, and I'm going to parent that like that. So then what I want is I'm going to come back into the show menu and switch on my joints. What I need is for the lower handle here, the lower spine control, I need the pivot point for that to be down here at the pelvis. Okay, at the moment if I turn the move tool on, you can see it's actually up here where this is. What I want to do is actually get this sort of down into the pelvis here. So I'm going to switch on snap to points and come over to the move tool, settings, and hit edit pivot, and then drag this down to here. Okay, so this handle's pivot point is here. Switch off edit pivot and switch off snap to point. Okay, so now what I want to do is make sure that this control handle is parented to this control handle. So I'm going to select the upper spine control and then select the mid spine control and go to edit parent, just there, like that. And then what I want is for this control handle and this control handle to be parented onto the body control. So I'm going to select my spine lower control, shift select my body control, and then parent that. So edit parent, and then select my mid spine control and shift select the body control and parent those. Edit parent. Okay, here we go. So when I select the body control, it's going to move all of the other spine controls. Okay, if I select the lower body control, I can kind of get that bit of movement. And more often than not, I'll probably be rotating this, so I can kind of get that kind of lower bend. All right, and then if I select this one, what I can actually do is get the upper part of the can to bend like this. Okay, and if I need to, you know, I can always grab this top one and get that top bend going there as well if I want a little bit of extra waggle. Okay, but we still have a few more connections to make. So one of the things I need to do is I need to get the master control to move the body. So if I select the body control, shift select the master control and parent that, so edit, parent. So now when I select this one, it's going to select that. I need to have these shoulder controls move along with the body. So I'm going to select both shoulder controls, shift select the body control, and then parent that. So edit, parent. Okay, so now if I use the body control, if I move that around, it's going to move the shoulders with it. Okay. I want the elbow control to follow the wrist control. So I'm going to select the elbow and then the wrist, and then parent that, edit, parent. Same thing on the other side. Elbow control, shift select the wrist control. Keep in mind I'm selecting the wrist control, not the IK handle. I've seen that happen before. Edit, parent. So now when I move the wrist, the elbow control is going to go with it. Now I haven't done knee controls yet, so I might do a couple of those as well. I might leave that for the last video where I do the foot control setups fully. Now speaking of the foot and the wrists, what I need to do is parent the feet controls just here to the master control. So I'll go edit, parent, and I also need to do the wrist controls here and here also to the master control. Edit, parent. Okay, so you can see there all the control handles when you select the master control, weirdly except for the feet. Why didn't they connect? There we go. Sometimes I'm clicking and it's not actually registering, but I think my computer's playing up a bit. Okay, so you can see here now when I select the master control, all the other controls select. Now there's one issue. We can see here in the middle that the pelvis joint and the body joint are not coloring pink like the rest, which means they're not being controlled by anything at the moment. What we need to do is we need to constrain the pelvis joint to the body control just here. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the body control, we're going to shift select the pelvis or the root joint. Now you can see here I'm clicking but nothing's happening. It's because I switched the joint selection toggle off here, so I've got to reactivate that. I'm going to shift select the parent, the root joint just here. So select the body control, shift select the root joint, and we're going to come up to constrain parent options. We're going to maintain offset, and we're going to constrain translation and rotation. We'll hit add. Okay, so now when I select the body control, you can see that those two joints also go pink. When I select the master control, everything is now pink, which means everything's connected to something else. So now what I can do is move the master control handle around and it'll move the entire rig. Technically speaking, if everything's working okay, I should also be able to rotate the master control. So, you know, if I needed to stick my character upside down on the ceiling, I could just flip the master control upside down and move this up into position. Okay. So the rig is almost entirely finished. The only thing I think we need to do is add in the knee controls and also the new control attributes for the feet. So we'll do that in the next video, and that more or less will complete the actual rig. Once we've done that, all we have to do is connect the model onto the rig and just make sure that it's deforming nicely. And that's going to be using a skinning or a skin binding system. So at this point, usually it's a good idea. I'm going to hit save. Usually it's a good idea at this point to just go through and double check that all of the control handles are working in the way that you would expect. So you could just kind of, you know, move the feet around a little bit, you know, maybe try and rotate them a bit. Don't forget to undo to get them back into the same position that they were in, the default position, or you can type in zeros for the translate. So, you know, I can rotate the wrist around. That seems to be working. Obviously the elbow is connected to that, the elbow control, so that's going to fly around, but you can also separately, you know, move the elbow control as well. These controls up here, this one here you may not ever use, but this one's going to work best with rotation, like this. And to be honest with you, you might actually want to, lock things like the translations on some of these handles so that you only rotate them, but it doesn't mean you need to. You know, some of these you can rotate and move as well. But probably what we'll do is, when we've finished the entire rig, we'll go through and lock everything out that we don't need. Okay, we'll leave this here, and in the next video we'll add some knee controls, and then we'll sort out the last foot controls, and then we're kind of done with actually building the rig. As I said, it's just about connecting things, so I'll see you then.